Understanding Pep Guardiola's 2010-11 Barcelona tactics. Many people believe that this Barcelona team is the greatest club side to ever play football. So how did Pep Guardiola set this team up for greatness? Barcelona on paper set up in a 4-3-3 and obviously used a heavy possession-based game plan, averaging nearly 68% possession per 90 across every league game. Like most Pep teams, the build-up started from the goalkeeper, which in this case was Victor Valdez, who was more than comfortable on the ball and offered actually more on the ball than he did off the ball in his shot stopping. Something that we could apply to Edison today. Most teams in Spain used to use two-man strike partnerships, so Pep used to outnumber them with the two split centre-backs and a ball-playing goalkeeper, meaning they can go 3-2 in the first phase and not be outnumbered. But using this structure, it would make the goalkeeper the 11th outfield player for Barcelona. The benefit of using a goalkeeper as the third player in phase 1 is that they didn't lack any bodies in the second phase of the game. They still had their midfield trident of Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta very much intact, so none of them had to sacrifice their games to drop into the back line to make Barcelona function. However, when Barcelona faced a high pressing opponent or an opponent who used a front three, they would often use Busquets as a third centre back as he dropped between the defenders, and this is where Lionel Messi playing as a false nine dropping between the midfield lines comes into play. They pretty much never got overloaded in any portion of the pitch. David Villa and Pedro are more traditional wingers under Pep Guardiola, and he used the Cruyffian principles of having his wingers as wide as possible because it would stretch the back line, leaving pockets of space in between them. But not only that, it would force the fullbacks of the opposition to be pinned back, meaning there was more freedom for Barcelona's fullbacks to get really high in advance, and not only that, it would push the opposition lines backwards. When Dani Alves' position became much more advanced on the right hand side, Pedro would tuck inside, while Xavi would come over and operate in the right channel and form triangles with Dani Alves and Pedro. And this is where we start to see one of my favourite methods in football being used by Barcelona, and this is called overload to isolate, which is where you numerically dominate one side of the pitch, forcing the opposition to drift over and put more markers on that side of the pitch, therefore often leaving numerous amount of players in 1v1 situations on the other side of the pitch in free areas. And when David Villa isolated his opponent's fullback one-on-one, it was near impossible to stop him. False 9 Lionel Messi on this side was revolutionary. His spatial awareness and movement in the final third meant that when he dropped into the pockets in front of the defensive line, he was always able to drag markers out of the positions, either a number 6 or one of the centre-backs, because this would leave space in the back line to be exploited by third-man runners like Iniesta and both wingers. The problem is, defenders had to do this with Lionel Messi, because if they didn't, you were leaving the greatest player of all time with space and time to do whatever he wants to you on the edge of the box, whether it be a curve shot, a threaded ball, or a mazy dribble. Pep case, this team was still exceptional. Pep Guardiola used to use his famous 6-second press rule, because whenever Barcelona lost the ball, they only lost it high up the pitch, and when it was turned over, they had enough bodies around the ball to suffocate the space around the ball carrier. Barcelona did have a few pressing triggers. Pep Guardiola used to never like players receiving the ball on their weaker foot, or receiving the ball with their back to goal, or receiving the ball in wide areas. And these three main things are where Barcelona's 6-second press was utilised. I've witnessed this Barcelona team dismember my own team over 2 different occasions, and even though I cannot stand FC Barcelona, it is by far the best team I've ever seen to play football.